찍고 있어? Hi, I'm Dabby, but you can call me Dabz. So today I'm reviewing Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So I read this in 2021 and it is recently one of the only classics that I've been able to like get through and finish. So this book, you've probably heard kind of what the story is about, generally just in like media, but it's about Dr. Victor Frankenstein, a young scientist who aims to create life. When he succeeds, he's horrified at the monster he's created, and this monster comes after Dr. Frankenstein and his family, and it's mostly about the journey of Dr. Frankenstein, but also the monster. So I enjoyed this book, and I felt satisfied when I finished it, but I'm not 100% sure if the reason I felt satisfied was pure enjoyment of the book itself or just like relief to have finally finished a classic, because in 2021 most of the classics I've read I ended up like not being able to finish. So my favorite part of this book is that it made me think. Even after finishing the book, it had me thinking like about the events. It has a good kind of main idea or like theme of the book of both responsibility and like society's views and effects on like humanity in general, like on people. I think this book deals a lot with like ethics and existence and kind of philosophical ideas like that. So my favorite part was how much it kind of makes you think. The downside of this book was that the beginning of this book was painstakingly boring. Personally, the entirety of the book itself is very wordy and like descriptive, but usually the wordiness worked for the story. But for me, the beginning was just very hard to get through, and it was hard to get into the book. And along the way, there were definitely some slow parts, but mostly for me, it was the beginning. But I think once you get through the beginning, the story gets a little more interesting. And also, one big note for me was do not read this book expecting like horror or thriller or something like that. It's definitely not a horror book. It definitely has like horror components or like horror themes, but it's more of a tragedy slash like a book dealing with ethics, which I personally, like I said before, ended up really liking. That made up for a lot of the boringness of some of the parts. The way that the book dealt with humanity and society. But if you're someone trying to get into this book looking for like a classic horror, I don't necessarily think that's what you're going to find in this book. I especially like the chapters narrated by the monster. I feel like they felt a lot more refreshing after like Victor's chapters, and I feel like that they had so much more of an interesting viewpoint, like seeing the world through the eyes of the monster that Victor had created. I really like those chapters. Speaking of which, Victor, the main character, I hated Victor, personally. Maybe we're supposed to hate him. In that case, good job to Mary Shelley. But maybe that's the reason that I like the monsters chapters so much better. Because Victor, I just didn't like his character. There were so many times that he could have avoided everything that happened in the story. His opinions were awful, but still, I could still understand his point of view. I could still understand why he made the actions that he did, even though I didn't necessarily agree with them, which I think that Mary Shelley did really well. Some of the lines in this book were very poetic. Like, I want to read them again for the first time. I want to read, these are two lines, like two quotes from the book that are coming up. Slight spoiler warning, they don't really tell you what's going to happen in the story, but if you want to read these, like, for yourself, then don't skip ahead to this time. Yeah. So the first one is, "It is true we shall be monsters, cut off from all the world, but on that account we shall be more attached to one another." And the other one that I really liked was, "Even broken in spirit as he is, no one can feel more deeply than he does the beauties of nature." So I really liked those lines, and there were a lot of other lines in here that I really liked reading. They were just pleasing. Like the way they were written was just poetic. And lastly, I liked the ending. I was reading through some Goodreads reviews, and there were some people that said the ending was kind of like underwhelming to them, but personally I liked the ending, which brings us to the end of this book review. So I would rate this book probably 3.75 stars. 3.5 stars out of 5. I would recommend this book to anyone who wants to get into classics. This book actually made me want to read more classics, which, by the way, if you have any recommendations for classic books, leave them down below. But this book was kind of what inspired me to want to get more into classics. I would recommend it for anyone who wants to kind of think a little while they're reading, but if you aren't great at reading, like understanding like old-timey language, I guess, big words, then I wouldn't recommend this book. But personally, I'm not that great at that either, but I just had like my phone next to me, like with a dictionary up, so every time like a word that I didn't know came along, I would just look it up. Hold on, let me find out. So like I annotated this book, so I would like circle the word and write the definition next to it. So using a dictionary, it wasn't that difficult. Like there were a couple words in there that I didn't understand, and I would just look them up. Yeah. So that is the end of my book review. If you like this video, then like this video and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and happy reading. 100%. Oh, I said that wrong. The last thing I kind of want to mention is some of the lines in this book. Well, actually, this is not the last thing. Sorry, LOL. No one can feel. Dang it! Yeah, I hope this review helped you guys. If you like this video, I feel like that's weird. I feel like I should say this is the end of my book review. Okay. But it was mostly the beginning. But I feel like once you, oh my god. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's gonna start from kind of. Okay.